Hey you guys, this is our last assignment and I'm really excited to see what you come up with. It is long exposure photographs. So I just wanted to show you some samples of that and then allow you to also do some research on your own because there are all different kinds of long exposure images to take. So let's just jump in here. Okay, so if you have a strobe light or an external flash, that means a flash that comes off the camera and will go off in your hand, you can set your camera up like this gentleman's doing, right? And then you just pop the light onto the ground, whoops, onto the ground or onto the objects, and they will expose for good light. So this exposure is long enough that he's able to walk around all three of these stones. And then here he is just with that. It's just a regular flash, and most of them you can check to see if they're okay, and they'll pop. The light will pop on and pop off. So again, you can see it's kind of a fun way to play with light this way. This is another one, kind of the same idea. The trick is to not get your shadow into the scene, right? So you have to think about where you're standing when you're letting the flash pop. And then here is, you can put like colored filters over the flash and change the light. I've even done some stuff with some saran, like colored saran wrap or colored plastic, and then you can change the color of the flash. So they've got a red light inside the van and a green one on the outside. And then here's another kind of thing here where they have the red light here and the green light. And then again, they pop the red over on this side. Now you can use a strobe if you have one, or there are some different flashes that go off, in a sequence, like every 10th of a second or so. And a lot of these this image particular was photographed a long time ago. And they started this because there was a bet that people didn't believe that a horse lifted all 4 feet at the same time. They always felt like one hoof was on the ground. And they did a test, and they realized that no, the horse, there are moments when a horse is running where all 4 legs are off the ground. But you can see, this one motion, but within the time frame is just, the strobe is going off really quick to record the light. And so this was kind of done with all these different projects. And here's a guy who is showing how he does his things.
I'm RJ Hitson, and I shoot people. Today we're shooting Dancer in the Dark. It's a personal project of mine. We're using off-camera flash to light it, and also repeating flash, which is sort of a unique method to speed light. With repeating flash, you're going to want to really drag the shutter. You'll have to have a 3-second exposure, or you'll have to have a 4-second exposure, depending on how you set the flash. There's 2 things that you have to remember with repeating flash. One is the first number, which is the number of times that the flash goes off. The second is the speed at which it goes off. So those 2 numbers will determine how long your exposure is going to be. It's going to be a long exposure, so you'll want to A, have a tripod, B, plenty of batteries. Modifiers should be kept pretty simple. Because the flash output is so low, today we're just using raw flash with a flag to keep a lot of the light off the backdrop, and we're using a softbox with just 1 baffle in it directly above the subject. It's got great creative potential. Your imagination's really the limit. These lights, even though they're small, they pack a good punch, so you can use them anywhere you can think of, especially when it comes to people or still life subjects. Take your flash. It's a great tool.
Okay, so here's another earlier version of the same thing. Even if you're just doing some, overlapping or soft movements with a person, these are all done with flashes or strobe lights, studio lights. Now, if you want to do nature scenes and you have a consistent light source, what you need is an ND filter, a neutral density filter. You may have one with your equipment. What it is, it's like putting sunglasses on the end of your lens and therefore darkening everything so it allows your exposures to go long. So, for this, you guys, we are looking at, below a 60th of a second exposures. And when you're photographing something that's moving and you have a really long shutter speed, you will see the moving water in this case becomes like glass. It just has a whole new feeling to it. It's really kind of cool. You can also, if you do it right, long exposures at night can look like daytime photos. So it's just about, the different ways you can do this. So this would be a very low light situation, but the light's enough to capture this fabric, and the dancer is just making some, kind of sweeping dramatic moves, but she's getting some very interesting shapes are being created. And again, this is a dancer with some fabric. So this is Pablo Picasso, and he's doing this, which is very popular with photography, is painting with light. So if you have a pen light, or you have your cell phone, or even the flashlight on your cell phone, there's different kinds of features and brightnesses you can play with. If your exposure is long enough, then you can draw something and the light trails will actually show. And so this is done with either a cell phone light or an external light. Now that you can see the location, it's very low light. It's almost like a cave. And so this person is just creating these shapes, very interesting shapes. So now if you want to do something like this, I think of the Big Dipper in this one. You can do some compositing if you want. Just make sure that your camera's staying the same, and you go into the space and you're making different shapes with your light. And you have to practice this too to know how much light you're going to need, and how thin or thick your light is, right? You have to play around with that a bit. You can go to a dollar store and buy glow sticks. That's not a problem. Now this is, the Star Trails is very popular with long exposure. You need to be away from people. You need to be away from light noise. And so, and I'm not sure around here where to do this, but you can do it. And what I'm hearing now with the digital, what people are doing are a succession of 10-second exposures and then merging those together in Photoshop. It seems to render better results. So these are just absolutely gorgeous light trails. Yeah, really beautiful. So this is an option for you to try. Just remember, you need to be away from a lot of people, a lot of houses and street lights and stuff like that. Beautiful. Now this is very interesting because Jane goes into an environment and people are sitting in like a dark room, and she's using a pen light or some kind of neon light to trace over the objects, and she's doing this very quickly. And so we see people in a space, real people that she's, kind of covering up and painting. It's really, really very interesting work. So think if can you do something like this, and how long would that take? I mean, this is pretty detailed, right? I mean, just look at this. Beautiful. And this is just kind of scary a little bit, but I do think that the impact is very interesting. Now, these are some other things that I found online that people are playing with long exposures. So yeah, totally research it, look at what people are doing, and then see what you can come up with. Love this. So this light exploding from her mouth. Great. This is, obviously something very planned, which you can do. And then this is just kind of a fun one. And like the guy was saying in the video, it's really, what you can do with long exposures, it's really up to your imagination. And then you have to problem solve. You have to figure out how to get it shot and, how much light you need. So there is going to be some trial and error. And it's going to take you a little bit, but only 2 images are due. I hope that they're very creative and very well done, because this is your last project. But I'm sure you'll do just great. All right, email me with questions, and don't be afraid to look for more inspiration.